My last video. In this video I'm gonna a bit later explain exactly what it means and how I arrived at this decision, etc. So we'll get to it. But first of all, let's discuss what is of utmost importance right now when it comes to the current state of things in the market, because we're hitting the all-time high, 111, 112,000. Congratulations, guys, because we deserve to see this, even though I kind of wanted to take a quick short trade actually on Ethereum, but I ended up leaving this trade with no loss. So basically right here, I've entered the trade exactly what I showed you, and then as soon as it turned, I just put my stop loss into no loss and exited the trade with no loss. And just to clarify, a lot of people are oftentimes confused by the videos and by the titles and stuff, even though a lot of people call them clickbait, even though, well, they are kind of clickbaity, but in reality, I cannot really explain what's going to be in the video in just the title. But it's a catchy title, that's for sure. And it's always important to watch the videos from the beginning and until the end fully, and every single video to understand what I'm saying, because oftentimes people call me out supposedly in the comments, but in reality, in every video, I'm either talking about spot, I might be talking about the long-term portfolio, I might be talking about a short-term futures trade, and those things can change. It's up and down. It can be long and short and long and short and long and short. But when in reality, throughout the years, for example, when it comes to my spot portfolio, we've been accumulating. I haven't sold a single anything from my spot portfolio except for like some shit altcoins and stuff. But Bitcoin, for example, we've been accumulating together since the last 2 years, since the collapse of FTX, and I still hold all the same Bitcoin. So this also is going to do a lot with this, title of being the last video, what I'm going to discuss a bit later on. So when I'm taking a small, tiny short trade on Ethereum, it doesn't mean that I've sold a shit ton of my Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the holdings that I have. It's got nothing to do with it. There's one thing is long-term holding portfolio and short-term futures trades. Please get it into your head that one doesn't cancel the other. So, but just wanted to clarify this so people are constantly confused. I read the comments sometimes, and I'm just sometimes absolutely staggered by the amount of, not stupidity, but I guess ignorance of what I see in the comments. So, first of all, congratulations with the all-time high in Bitcoin, but if you look at, for example, Ethereum, then we're barely scraping by, and the volume is kind of okay, but it still is relatively weak. We're standing at a very important resistance of 2,700, which is what we really want to cover in terms of this order block for us to open the road to 3K. But in this video, I want to explain exactly what has happened in the last couple of days, and also tell you about my expectations, and I'm going to reveal my main target for Bitcoin, and that also correlates with my last video. So let's jump straight into this. And when it comes to quickly my order update, before I talk about the news, we'll just switch things up a bit for this video. Again, this trade left with no loss, and I have orders that I really wanted to enter lower, but again, for these active trades, you can never get the perfect price you want. So unfortunately, I had to actually increase the price for my orders. So my long orders now are standing like between 24.5 and 25.5, which I believe, if there is gonna be a correction, would be a great entry point. But for Bitcoin, yeah, I don't know. I don't see any structure to enter, to be honest. So maybe this level of 102, 103. We'll see, but I don't really care much about it because it's been doing quite well recently, and we really want to see Ethereum do well finally. It started doing a bit okay, but we want it to do so much better. Now, getting into the news, the most important thing that there is for Ethereum right now, BlackRock is urging the US SEC to approve staking and tokenization for Ethereum ETFs. And that's what I told you before. Once this actually happens, Ethereum is going to finally perform the way it's supposed to, because the narrative for institutionals is going to be there. So that there is dividend paying asset that is deflationary on Wall Street. Insane. So Ethereum, I think, is going to do much better than it's doing now once this is approved, and BlackRock is already pushing for it. So any day, really. Another piece of news that is quite important is that Americans are ready to upgrade their reserves. So 4 in 5 Americans would convert some US gold reserves into Bitcoin. So this narrative is becoming real, and we're seeing a lot of the money flow, some of it, from gold into Bitcoin, because the potential is clear and the advantages of Bitcoin, even over gold, are clear. Now, let's not get into this old spiel, but it's just obvious. So therefore, this is good news, and the narrative is slowly shifting, and that's why Bitcoin is doing so well. Arguably, if you look at this Bitcoin performance, is pretty insane. And good note here is that it kind of decoupled from S&P 500 because S&P just dropped a bit, but Bitcoin keeps pumping. So, and there is a reason for it. And let's just get into it. And it kind of also spills a bit into what I want to really, the message I want to deliver in this video. And certainly, one of the things I forgot to mention that you guys see that I'm trading over on Bybit. And there is also a nice bonus for our community from Bybit. So thank you, Bybit, for providing this bonus. Up to $30,000 in initial deposit bonuses. And most importantly, up to 42% discount on trading fees for our community who sign up using the link of our community down in the description of this video. You can claim these bonuses. And if you already have a Bybit account, you can create a new one using a different form of identification, such as, for example, a driver's license. So moving on. There has been some bad stuff happening in the US market, but Bitcoin is pumping, and that's a very important indicator to pay attention to. Markets have pulled back as Moody's have downgraded the US credit. So the US credit is suffering right now, and people are, and institutions and global leaders in other countries are actually losing their confidence in the US, well, in the dollar for one, and number two, in the long-term bonds, which is basically what everything is hinging on, is the long-term bonds. So if you're actually going to pay attention, the Treasury, what they did, the big sale of the 20-year Treasury bond, there was an auction and it failed badly. So, and it just shows that right now, and it actually is what caused the correction in the S&P 500, and yields have surged over 5%, and markets have tanked. This is a big problem, because if nobody's believing in long-term bonds, and this is actually pushing the bond yields higher to entice the investors to buy the bonds, it also long-term increases the mortgage rates and the cost of borrowing money. So it is further shrinking the economy. So this shit is bad. So therefore, that's why we've seen the US S&P 500 actually tank. So we'll see how Trump actually is going to approach this and try to fix this, maybe through quantitative tightening down the road. Certainly, it doesn't mean that they will suddenly go and flip and do quantitative tightening. However, with these kinds of conditions and all these cracks starting to show in the system, this could lead to a thing which is called recession. And then we already know that the central bank and the Fed actually said that they're ready to put in liquidity into the market. So the cracks are showing more and more and more, so that the quantitative tightening can finally step in, and the yield curve control, which is what we really need to see, huge explosive growth. Because when you're saying Bitcoin pump, it's pumping not because of retail. You look at the funding rates. Retail is kind of coming back, as I've said before, but it's very tiny amount. It's nowhere near the euphoria that you really would want to see. That's why altcoins are not really doing much, because altcoins need retail. They need this buying power from retail. And how this can come about? Well, this can actually come about from this, because a huge bill just passed the House of Representatives from Donald Trump, and the bill that includes massive tax cuts, no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, tax deductions on other stuff, which is huge, because when you're going to pay less taxes, it's more free money plus quantitative easing from the Fed, and this is where you get that extra cash to put into crypto. And plus everything that I've just mentioned, basically, because they cannot just keep ignoring this fact simply because this bond auction being so horrific, it just is making people think and doubt the US stock market in general. And if they doubt it, then where would they put their money? They would put it partly into Bitcoin. And then subsequently, all these old school cycles, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then altcoins. Certainly this transition will be not as effective just because institutionals are not going to be buying altcoins with their Bitcoin profits, but it's not only institutionals who are playing this entire game. So what I'm trying to say with this entire thing here is that a tiny bit more patience. Because I always said, even in my previous videos so many times, and people are so confused because they don't watch every single video I make, I've been saying so many times that over 50% of all my liquid net worth has always been in Bitcoin. Yeah, some altcoins here and there, 5%, 3 to 5% active trading. So whatever I would be showing you guys here over on Bybit, it's that, to be honest, all these trades, like all these micro trades, it's not even a few percent of what is in crypto, what I have. The best, in my opinion, way of making generational wealth is spot. Just buy it, hold it, the good assets, and trade it a little bit when the market permits. Because most of the time, the market doesn't really permit you to make crazy gains, especially in trading because there is no volatility, for example. So over 50% of my net worth, basically liquid net worth, has always been in Bitcoin. My average entry price has been at about $27,000 right here. This is my average entry price, about this level right here. So I've done okay. I've done fine. And if you've been following me for long enough, you've done fine as well. So congratulations. And this really leads me into the topic of this video, my last video. Honestly, guys, I've been considering as to when I'm going to fully retire and when I'm going to fully stop making any content whatsoever, because a lot of power and emotions and stuff goes into creating content on Instagram, on here on YouTube, and I'm also doing content in other languages. It's a full-time job. And we're also running and creating Evadex, and we have a team of almost 200 people at this point that sometimes I doubt my own sanity. So on the topic of my last video, my entire target, and as I promised to reveal my target in this video for Bitcoin, my target in this cycle, hopefully by the end of this year, will be in between 150 and 170,000. So right here, this is the block. And I'll tell you that in all honesty, it's about time for me to retire. So once Bitcoin hits about 150, I'll probably sell about 60 to 70% of my Bitcoin holding, and I'll probably sell all the altcoins and stuff. I'll just keep my businesses. I will delegate them to our CEO, CMO, and the C-level, and I will disappear probably from social media. Because at that time, I will have a very different level of wealth. I mean, it's like with this whole price action, my level of wealth has already, most of you do not even understand what I'm holding and what I have, and you all think that I care about fucking YouTube ad revenue, but keep thinking that, that's fine. So this is just an official statement that by the time Bitcoin hits 150, I'll be out of this game. I'll be probably somewhere on a mega yacht, smoking a cigar, raising kids, and having a good time for at least a couple of years. So that's all I wanted to say. And when this comes, if it comes quick, then it comes quick, hopefully. If not, then we'll stick around for a little bit. So consume as much content as you can while I'm still here. So thank you very much for every like, for every view, for everything we've gone through in the last 3, 4, 5 years of this YouTube journey. But it's time, once the price of Bitcoin is at 150, I'm going to be done. So thank you for watching.